All right.
That don't be disgusting.
All right. Hello. It's time for our next installment of Star Trek DS9 at 9-ish here on Live Long and Podcast, our ongoing mission to rewatch every episode of Star Trek DS9, going on well into 3 years now. And we are up to Season 6, Episode 17, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night from 1998. I'm Dave Mader. I'm joined with Kevin Millard. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
Excellent.
Excellent as you can be after this episode of Star Trek DS9, which we're going to talk about at length. We're going to break it down. We're going to analyze the plot, the choices by these writers, and what they did with this character of Kira Nerys in particular in this episode, because this is a big deep dive on Kira and Dukat and her mother and all this history that they kind of invented, you know, right towards the end here of the show, for whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
Well, we kind of know the reason, for, you know, not to jump the gun here on the fun facts, but in this particular episode, they had originally pitched that Kira had a secret affair with Dukat years ago, and like apparently, famously, Nana visitor would not do it. She refused. She was like, "No, this makes no sense."
That would be the only way to make this worse.
Yeah, they would only. It's the only way to make it, you know.
That don't be disgusting.
Totally assassinate her character.
Yeah, the only thing worse, like no, this is the worst. Like it would be the worst thing you could possibly do with her character for her to be. Oh, well, actually, there was that time we fooled around. I don't know what they were thinking. They were. I don't know what. I don't even know how they go, but they said fine, but it's now it's your mom. Dukat was with your mom years ago, and it's better. And I think that there's something to this story that I think we can try to find some redemption in. You know,
they don't tell it well. It has some good, like it could have some really good themes to it, some depth to it, but then they just go along with this bomb plot, and it's
really.
bad.
I think that, like, you know, the more I watch this show over the years, the more I'm like, it's really a lot of it's about being, I think, Jewish in particular. I think that the story is, you know, I think coming from like the post-Holocaust aspect, with Bajorans being the allegory, of course, the Cardassians being the Nazis, and I think that with the this whole like idea of collaborators, I think there's something that they wanted to explore, or you know, how the like lines can get blurred, and you know, how can you judge the morality of certain people who live through these situations, you know, and you know, it's hard to know what you're made of until you're put into that situation.
This episode could have great depth, but doesn't.
No, I think you have to really look for it, you know. It's sort of where I was coming at with it. And so I think like we have our visuals, but and a couple sound clips, but not really much. We got the question here. Okay, you know, Davan said he has not watched this since 1998. He was refusing to watch it, and he's working up to see if he'll come along. We expect Jaemeel Robinson will join us as well. Of course, there's a live stream here on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch. And Sam Higdon with us. You know,
yes,
have we seen what we left behind? Yes, we have. I believe. Yes, you and I both have seen it, Kevin, and I have seen it as well. And yeah, like let's. I don't know. They felt like they needed to do a Kira episode. And
this is another one that would have been better placed season 3. This story told better, but also season 3. Like, we're invested enough in Kira that we like her character, but we're not into this Dominion stuff. Like,
I just think Ira Stephen Bear, he did too many drugs one day, and he wanted to this idea that, like, what if I put Marka Lima with Nana, you know? But it's out of nowhere. It makes no sense, you know. So of course, like luckily he was talked down from that. But this also is dumb, because you've already set up that he had the thing with Zial, with Zial's mom. Right, Tora Naprem, and so this is an other Bajoran mistress. Her mom was like an other Bajoran mistress that before, maybe, or something, I guess, and that just never came up. Why would Dukat keep it a secret? Okay, we'll talk about that later. But let's look at the positives in this episode, Kevin. there's a kind of a fun scene here with Worf and Dax at the beginning, which I think is a good scene where it's about she wants to have a party with a bunch of people, ships coming in, and she's got a bunch of friends, and he's like, there's gonna be all the people coming over and it being loud and coming to our quarters, and she starts promising like no laughing, no fun whatsoever. It will be a very somber party.
I can see it now. 200 people in our quarters having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, like as mentioned, like he's like Worf is the Klingon who has the least amount of fun of any Klingon, because Klingons like to party, but he doesn't specifically. So this sets him aside from most of his species. But it's I like they know that Terry Farrell's leaving at this point, and they're writing some really nice scenes. And Ira Stephen Bear really didn't have anything choice in the matter, right? So I think he's ready to hear a nice scene, knowing that she's going to have to die at the end of the season, and that they're going to only break our hearts more, because I think he says in that documentary, What We Left Behind, you broke my heart when she left the show. And like looking at the circumstances now, I really understand why she did. But it's this scene is maybe the best part of the episode. When Quark comes along and he's like, here's your holosuite, and he's like, did we get the party this close? It didn't quite happen, right? And he's like, and then Kira
this is my favorite. Yeah.
Kira and Quark, she's like, thanks, Quark. She's being all nice to Quark. Thing. And Dax is like, oh, you two like a thing now? And she's like, don't be disgusting. Like another nice moment here with Terry Farrell in the episode. So so I really like this the way that they shot this promenade scene, with the merchant, and so the way that the director and I don't know, there's the visuals, just the way they have the extras going in the background here. It's kind of a different angle than they normally do. It works well for me with that blurred background. And I think that Kira's like, yeah, my mom's birthday, she died during the occupation. You're like, okay, I know where this is going. I've seen this before, but the clip over here, and then we get the phone call, and this is it's all downhill from here, guys, quite frankly, because Kira is woken up getting the transmission. Who's calling, she asks, and they can't quite figure it out. And here it is, Mark Alimo, last seen in Waltz after he beat Sisko with a pipe and was like, it is full mad on supervillain, mustache twirl. Kira hasn't seen him since he left the station, really, or basically since they retook the station, and he was like committed. And here he is, and we won't see him again after this episode until the season 6 finale, which is Tears of the Prophets. Oh, Davan Skelhorn, wrong's darker than just wrong. I know you're not a fan of the episode. You've already given it a 0. We're trying to find any good in this thing.
I'm going to give it a 1 because you're right. The Worf scene's funny.
The Worf scene is funny. Yes. And some good dialogue with Terry Farrell. And, but I feel like they were like, well, we can't leave Mark Alimo on the bench until the season finale. They totally should have. Or do something
ways
different.
To bring back Ducat than this. Like,
they
were going to commit. All right, I'm ranting.
Go ahead. Yeah.
They were going to commit character assassination of possibly the best developed character throughout the entire series thus far. A character they took from not a character at all to the amazing friggin' Major Kira, man. Kira's a great character. And they were going to assassinate her character, just to bring Mark Alimo back in a gross kind of role? Like, what is this? And like I just heard you say, like, why would he never mention that? Of course he would. It's Ducat for, like,
He's like, I've been keeping this under my chest, and it was only because I beat Sisko with a pipe, and he told me I was a dick and he got me to admit I wanted to kill them all. That I will admit this to you now.
No, I look stupid.
Like, we don't need this for Ducat to be made more evil. It's not even necessary.
Don't tell me.
I think that was the point.
Ducat would have never said to Kira, "Love me as your mother did."
Oh my God!
At any point,
he totally would have.
Oh, he totally.
Your mother wouldn't have treated me that way, Major. Like,
This
Yeah.
would have been
totally
every
would have said that.
every second
episode.
sentence out of his mouth would have been, "But your mother."
Exactly. Like, what is
Yeah,
this?
it doesn't
So, I
track
feel like
at all.
all the motivations here are coming from the wrong place. Like on the surface level, yes, that's something that happened during war, like this theme, um, of comfort women and whatnot that they were
Yeah.
called during the war. Um, but and wanting to explore that is fine. But if you're gonna do a serious theme like that, it has to be done so gracefully and tastefully as well, like Far Beyond the Stars. Like
Mhm.
that's a tough theme too, but my God, do they nail that? And that's the kind of care you have to take with a theme like that.
I feel like they stay in the shallow end of 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 the themes of this, like they
100%.
they never go really deep with it, and
No.
and then the bomb thing drives me nuts.
The
Like
bomb
that
part,
would,
the
like,
plot at the end.
yes.
Yeah.
What is she
Uh,
doing? Like, Jesus Christ.
I don't feel like they had a fully fleshed out idea of like
how to end it.
well, I think just even terrorism and this idea of being a freedom fighter and this, I think that they don't like, even though I agree Kira is a great character, but I don't know if it's a character that Ira Stephen Bear always understood very well. Hence we already had the mirror brile of things earlier this season, and now we have this is the follow-up Kira centric episode. It's a big disappointment, in terms of what he did in both instances.
And sometimes they do great things with her, like Duet and lots of others.
There's lots of others, and there's more great moments to come after this with her. I think that Nana Visitor knocks it out of the park. She tries her damnedest. Because she I stood up to the writers and I told them I wasn't doing the relationship with Ducat, and so I'm gonna try to make this work as best I can.
But that just shows you that their hearts were not in the right place. I don't think they really cared about this serious theme. They were, at least they don't express it in this, that they were trying to tackle here. It was more about doing something shocking, right?
The ending,
Kira,
how is that not? Even her immediately being okay with killing her own mother. Like, what? Like, she didn't have any struggle with that choice.
No.
It's like, well, you know what? She loves Ducat, so fuck it. She dies.
What about
he was a collaborator?
Yeah.
I don't think Cisco's like, what about the temporal prime directive? And she's like, I don't care. I'm not a Bajoran administrator. So.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't completely assassinate Kira's character, so they decided to just do it a little bit.
It doesn't make. I agree. Like all this, they could have come up with other ideas. They obviously had great episodes that come after this, and this is like the real low point, I think, before the season will pick up, because we have Inquisition after this, the Section 31 episode, and then we're gonna get In the Pale Moonlight, one of the best episodes ever. So this is like.
And this could have been good. It has some good performances. I like the Legate and their interaction, her and the Legate.
Yeah.
And it could have been good, but it just
what I remember in the Dark Knight, Harvey Dent says that the night is the dark, or the dawn is the darkest before the day, or whatever the hell he says. And this is kind of like that moment. I completely
remember when Harvey Dent said that thing. I can't remember.
Yeah, when Harvey Dent said that thing in that movie from a long time ago with Batman, which this is not a Batman podcast, but that's beside the point. Let's get into it. Yeah, so we see here after this phone call, and Kira is coming up, looking up her mom's records here, file from the occupation, the Singha place, her idea profile. I'm not sure. But and we said, Nana Visitor really trying to sell this, and the despair. This whole scene here where she bites off the heads of O'Brien and Bashir, because they're talking about they're gonna make a holodeck or holosuite program of the Alamo, where they're gonna be Davy Crockett and whoever, right? I don't really know the story of the Alamo that well, but I know it's there's just think of it as a very few amount of people trying to defend a fort from a great many Mexicans, and they're all gonna die in the end. They're all definitely gonna die. Yeah, and Worf's just it's impossible. He's it's impossible unless you have more men. Yeah, you're gonna need more. It's like
Yeah.
Bart the General. Yeah, but like
I mean, maybe we have none. I need
Yeah.
more.
You're gonna need more. but Bashir says what, like, he does question the idea of like what's the fun of losing in the end, is he doesn't see the romanticism, I guess, in like the blaze of glory as much as O'Brien does. He's gotta educate him on this. But yeah, Kira not having it. She got a phone call from Dukat, the worst guy in the galaxy, maybe, in the middle of the night. They're still going on, and she's like, "We got work to do, people. Hey, Brian, why don't you go fix something? And Bashir, you don't work up here. Get to the infirmary." Just the look she gives O'Brien here. He's like, "Oh, okay."
And then the look that O'Brien gives as he walks away, just like, "Whoa, shit."
Oh shit!
Fine.
Yeah. I guess we're not Nerys and Miles anymore, are we? So here's who we have
What
to.
just bugs me just thinking about it. Like, why Kira? Why did they ever want that to be a thing? Dukat and Kira. Like,
I know.
And what's the significance of it being her mother? Even like, what are they trying to do here? They could have told this story and had no relation to Kira.
Kira has way more romances than Dax in this show. Okay, like we got Kira and Bareil, Kira and Shakar, Kira and Odo. They wanted to do Kira and Dukat, but they didn't do that here. But who else? I feel like there's been other ones. Mira Bareil.
No, she didn't want to go out on a date with Baudet.
Yeah, she's not going out with the Galamite. That's where or Quark. She's got the. Yeah, here's O'Brien just like, oh, I better get to work. And then the Bajorans in the room and everyone in ops is just like, oh, what the heck? She's like, we got work to do, people. She comes in on Odo. Odo, there's been an uptick in crime. Let's get on this. He's like,
with this, I agree with her. He should be doing his job more often.
Yeah. It's like she woke up to the fact that Bashir doesn't work up here. Why is he always up here drinking coffee with O'Brien? This is why things break down. And then, things are always getting stolen on the promenade. Odo's not doing anything. How would you get on?
Remember that time Cisco said to him, "You're the best damn security officer in the quadrant." And I'm just like,
that's a shit quadrant.
Dominion's taken over.
Oh, here it is.
You're the best law enforcement officer in this sector. Maybe the whole damn quadrant.
Jeez, I hope not. I hope he's just like blowing smoke up his ass there.
Yeah, I think. I think yes. This goes like I think I need this for political reasons for Odo to be my chief.
Like if Worf overheard that, Worf would be like, "I'm." Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm standing right here.
The first thing Worf does when he gets on the station is be like, "What's with this fucking guy? This guy sucks."
Yeah, he knows that Quark breaks the law all the time, and he lets him. What's up with this guy? The Ferengi. Yeah. Kevin, you weren't on last week, but that was like the one time he still doesn't say Quark. He doesn't say.
No, never in the whole series.
Yeah, he just goes
the Ferengi bartender.
That's his name.
So much disrespect, man. It's so cold.
Yeah. The Ferengi.
I love Worf.
Yeah.
I have a sense of humor.
I know. It's okay. Okay. And the conversation here with Cisco, he's like, "What? Dukat called? Did you know he beat me with a pipe?" Well, I was already pretty messed up as it was.
I love that he goes from "Why didn't you tell me?" and then finds out it's personal, and he's like, "Oh, what did he say?"
Oh, go on, gossip.
His whole demeanor changes. It's like, "Oh, really? What did he say?"
Oh, dude, I think he knows Dukat. These two know him better than almost anybody. So like, who can she talk to about that other than him? And she's like, "Well, you talk about my mom and all this stuff," and he's like, "Oh," he's almost like the counselor here role. He doesn't play it as much like a captain, or
plays that role quite often though for a captain.
Yeah, you can totally see him in Counselor Troy's office saying like, "Let's talk about your feelings." Yeah, especially with Kira. He's got he rarely dresses Kira down or whatever. He does that to Worf all the time. He does that Worf last episode. But here with Kira, he has more of a partnership a lot of the time. You know, they know how to work.
Because he found out he intimidates Worf and he loves it.
Yes.
So he's just playing that card as often as he can.
Yeah.
Try me, sir.
Yeah, right.
More pain, less cold.
Yeah. Anyway, so she's like, I want to use the orb of time. And Cisco's like, that's against like Starfleet regulations. And she's like, I don't care about that. You're the emissary. You have to let me do this. And you can give me priority access. I was like, you're a pretty famous Bajoran as it is, Kira Nerys, but I think you could pull some strings. You kind of know the first minister. You know, I know you're broken up at the moment or whatever, but
she knows the Kai herself.
She knows the Kai. I think if she wanted to get access to the orb, maybe she thinks the Kai would block it. That would have been interesting if she threw that line in. I think I would like to get the thing, but the Kai would block it.
They also missed an opportunity to put Kai Wynn in here.
Yeah.
Somehow talking about Kira's mother or something like that. Like Kai Wynn would have been good.
I would have rather had a Kai Wynn and Kira episode than this. Yeah, for sure. Even if Kai Wynn had somehow come into the questionable morality and really shooken her resolve. But instead we get, you know, Avery Brooks playing the role of the priest a bit in this episode, you know, as I guess Kira's faith has really been shooken. You know, we head down to the mat.
What else would have been better than this? A romantic candlelight riverside dinner with Kira, Bareil, and Shakar.
Or even Mir Shakar. All right. I always like, we don't get too many shots of Bajor, the matte paintings of Bajor, but we get a couple this is
nice
they made this in the pilot. It's looking a lot better. Maybe they got blankets for those orphans now these days after the occupation. Head down to the temple. She says the name of the temple. It escapes me at this moment. We see the orb of time. Last seen in Trials and Tribulations, where this is what the one line in this episode that stuck out to me, where she's like, "Well, if the prophets don't want me to go back in time, if their will is not with it, then they won't allow this." So the prophets were helping Charlie, or what's his the Klingon guy who goes back in time in Trials and Tribulations. That was their will, that he used the orb to try to kill
Arn Darvin.
Arn Darvin, that's who I mean. Yes.
I guess so.
There you go. So she does this vision. Now she'll live through weeks here in the matter of minutes, basically.
Actually, Dave, she believes that the prophets will guide her, but we find out the prophets seem pretty indifferent most of the time.
Yeah. Well, but the fact that they created the orb of time specifically, like to do specifically this, like, does this change the timeline or not? Or is this more of just like a vision of the past? And like, I don't know, does this have consequences in a time travel sense?
Doesn't seem to.
I don't think the orbs do. The orbs are just
because they never address this episode when she sees Kira, when Kira sees Dukat next season, when he's running Empok Nor and that Pa Wraith cult, she doesn't say, "Hey, remember when?"
Another shitty episode.
Well, I know, but like, just they never call this back. So I don't really understand. Like, wouldn't it change the timeline if like, hey, Kira looks a lot like that woman who tried to blow me up, a long time ago.
It would have to change the timeline because that was the whole premise of Trials and Tribulations.
Right. Yeah, it would have to. So, like, the next time she talks to Dukat, Dukat, I don't know, it would have changed those events. That's what's kind of confusing about this. I know it's not a great episode, and we shouldn't get too hung up on it, but it's just kind of a weird thing that they threw into. They're like, what if Kira goes back in time and meets her mom? Okay, let's go. And she
I'm out. All right, I gotta tap out now. I can't do it. I can't go through this plot again.
Okay, it's fine.
Right, my intestines are weak. I'm sorry. I tried.
You did well. You did well.
I even upped it to a 1.
Yep. Yeah.
But
it's even more downhill. Well, we're going way down.
Keep on listening. We'll see if we can get you back down to a 0.
Maybe a 0.5.
Maybe.
Yeah.
When the episode synopsis is done, I'm gonna start listening again. All right. Later, guys.
Through the synopsis. Yeah. So Kira just emerges in this cave. She doesn't she's got different clothes on. She's now maybe in the body of somebody else. It's not really made clear here at all. She just kind of now in the past. And it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like, she's in the caves. We understand we're back in the Bajoran occupation. I guess this is like 20 something years ago, at least. I think we get a specific year that's given to us. I'm just see if I can find that. But anyway, we see the guy who plays Kira's dad, Kira Taban, Tom Capoce. He's back. He had previously, we'd seen in the last flashback scene where he had died, where she went out to avenge him getting injured, and she wasn't there when he died. So they bring him back, and they bring in this woman to play her the mother, Kira Maru, Leslie Hope, who I think is fine in this role. I think she's actually a pretty good actor. In the scene, we see this, this whole thing where they puts the knife to the throat, and then Kira Nerys, that is, she comes to the rescue. I don't know, but they still had the knife to her dad's throat this whole time, and she's like, well, maybe I'll stab you. And then she gets into a fight. She picks up the knife. She scares off the bandits, or these guys were trying to steal the soup because they've been standing all line.
This was dumb too. That's not the way. They didn't have to. I know they have to find a way to introduce her to her family, but
yeah, I
mean, she could have just talked to them. We didn't need this whole thing either.
Right. It's just oh, well, she protected me, and then we get this. We see the 3-year-old Kira Nerys is present, along with 2 of Kira's brothers, who she never talks about or we never see otherwise in the show. But they're present as well during these events. I guess Kira's 30 something at this point. So so this is 27 years ago or so, I think. I guess what if you could meet a 3-year-old version of yourself, and they would never remember this, or you would never remember this. I didn't really find this too significant. No. I wasn't oh, hey, Kira's looking at the younger version of herself. What didn't get me going, but the music was trying to get me going on it. And then
very narcissistic. She didn't care about her brother at all.
Yeah, she didn't oh, here's my young brothers, or how. No, it was just her. She was so fixated on herself. And then we get this guy. His name is Basso or Basso. He's the Bajoran collaborator guy who works with the Cardassians to subjugate his own people. He's the lowest of the low.
Great performance from this guy.
Yeah, amazing. He's really good. He's just so despicable, And after this whole scene, I guess, of just we're not supposed to be fighting with ourselves. We're supposed to, the spoonies, the spoonheads, or the Cardis, are the ones who are the real enemy, is what Kira tells them. But they say that they're all getting picked up just randomly to become comfort women to the Cardassians up on the new space station Terrak Nor, which we are also told is just completed construction around this time, so it's brand new. We see Kira's mom and Kira herself get taken off. Her dad screaming with the 2 brothers and young Kira Nerys. They're all left, but she didn't remember any of this. She didn't have a memory of this. She just thought her mom died in some other labor camp. Anyway, so we see Terrak Nor as it is at this time. Deep Space Nine. It's orbiting Bajor. Is an ore processing facility. We see the women getting taken to the quarters, and Kira and her mother, Kira Maru, they both get assigned to the same quarters. The despicable collaborator guy tell them, spend some time in the sonic showers. The Cardassian men like their women clean.
They like cleanliness.
Yeah, this is some real dark content they're getting into here, but it feels a little bit too sanitized in some ways too. And then this is where we get a real glimpse of Kira's mother's character. She's well, oh my God, I've never seen so much food, and she's a bit more she's got a little less of a tolerance for suffering than maybe Kira Nerys does.
This episode, a little more of Dukat winning her over would have been better. It would have like followed that theme a bit more. Like it's
Yeah, well, I think she should have been more of a resistor. I feel like they're like, well, we don't have time for her to like get broken, but like that would be the only way to make this redeeming at all. But she just seems to, she's like, I miss my kids and my husband, yes, but I was hungry and starving, and now I have food, so I'm tempted. And this idea that even like Picard is tortured in that Cardassian episode. There are 4 lights, Right.
yeah, he's a Starfleet officer.
He's a Starfleet officer. He was broken after days and days. She's living this whole life. She's been starving, trying to raise 3 kids.
But it shows how manipulative Dukat really is, and like a cult leader, which he later becomes.
Right.
It shows how he does that, and that could have been a good theme through this.
Well, I think that like the way,
episode.
I feel like the way she ends up by the end of this episode, she doesn't hate Dukat any more than she did, right? But shouldn't that be the point? Is that he corrupted and destroyed their family, and and he's the real the Kira Maru, even though she was she's definitely complicit in a sense, but she's also a victim in the greater scale of the occupation. And she didn't ask to come up here. She didn't volunteer to become up here and leave her family behind, so I think like do one or the other, like make her completely amoral, or I think like that's the only way you can sort of save this story if you're going to tell this story at all, which of course they did. But this is why it doesn't work so well for us, I guess, because the mother, who she's never really talked about before, we know, we saw the story of their father, and this is the story of her mother, but like by the end of the story, she hates her mother. She have a good memory of her mother, and she should blame Dukat for that, but she doesn't really, she doesn't seem to. She doesn't say that at the end.
No, and that's fine with me. I would have liked to have seen Kira as more of just an observer in this, rather than being so involved in everything. And in every way with her mother.
Why couldn't you do this? Like, you could do this orbit time thing where she's just an observer of the past and kind of see these events. And these could be like flashes, where all this like corruption of her mother could have been more of a thing. And only to set up the fact that, that if Kira wasn't going to come and get Dukat before, she definitely is now. I think that could have been an interesting thing. Like Kira's got a real revenge plot here. It's because like really like they had this bond over Zial, which is like but now Zial's out of the picture and whatever, and so like now it's like we're turning up the amp here that hate, and she really only sees Dukat one more time after this, and it's not even a good episode, to Davan's point, So I don't know. I just think this is kind of missed opportunities. I feel like they might have done something here with Dukat's makeup to make him look like a younger version.
Younger, yeah.
It was something I kept noticing. Like it was like less texture in his makeup in some of these other scenes. Which, what did we say this was? 2346. So this is like at this point, Starfleet is still wearing the the Wrath of Khan style uniforms. This is how far back we're going. This is like yesterday's Enterprise C era sort of thing. It doesn't really necessarily feel like that. And we see here how Dukat like got her mother and was oh, you're covering up your scar, and he gets the dermal regenerator and does this whole thingamabob. This is, I guess, part of winning her over. Anyway, we get to see that. That's all.
Just a story about how her mother could have been won over would have been way better than
corrupted, I guess.
A whole bomb plot where she's going to kill her mother. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's hard for me to say what I mean because the episode doesn't make any sense.
It does, like, I don't like, yeah, I think it's just trying, I think it's coming from the victim's point of view of like, I think like if your family member were a collaborator, would you feel differently about them, you know? Because I think that whole point that they were a victim of circumstance too. How do you feel about them? Is it just fight the enemy till the end, or is like, you know, is like, I don't know, these comfort women, should we judge, how do we judge them, I guess is part of what this episode 2 is about. You know,
Right.
But I think that I know my answer to that is like, you can't really, they're basically slaves. So
well, Kira doesn't blame all of them. She blames her mother because her mother likes Dukat.
right.
Like, it isn't just for the kids, it's both reasons. It's for her family, but she also, I think, does fall in love with Dukat.
Yes, you're right. And we already knew that Zial's mother had already fallen in love with him. And that seemed to be a genuine thing. So this is not even like a new revelation about Dukat. We don't learn really anything new about Dukat other than the specific with her mother, which seems so random in a planet of like millions of people that he would happen to have met her mother, you know. It just seems like it's another contrived reason. Oh, we mentioned this Leggett guy who I don't know who plays him, but he's really good.
Really good. I like their banter. It was really good.
Yeah, Dukat.
I love when he's walking down the hall drunk and he's like, I'm a Cardassian. I'll put my feet wherever I want.
Yeah. Like I think Kira, like this whole like scene here where Dukat's like, hey, don't you be touching her. But this is apparently a whole planned thing. He's like, I hope you won't judge me for the acts of one boorish man. And you know, but the Leggett is like going along. He's like, yeah, he's about to say this next, you know, just watch, right? And he's like, why don't you go do this? And he's like, how do you know that? He's like, I've seen this melodrama before, you know. Like there are some things in here that are fun if you're really looking, because I think we're really looking,
yeah,
you know. But you know,
there's some good individual performances. It's just the problem is with the story.
Yeah, which is like, why did we need to do this, guys? Couldn't you have come up with another idea that week? But you know, it is what it is. Yeah, coming back here with the Leggett, you know, she's like, I'm coming in, and she's like, no, you're not, you're going home. And he's like, but I am a Cardassian. She's like, you know, I don't know, she was fun in this stuff. So it wasn't like I was just hating this for 40 something minutes, even though I hate the story, or what I hate the character assassination. I think is a legitimate critique here, although I think Kira stays true to herself mostly here. You know, it's just an assassin. It's just like it's giving Dukat this power that he doesn't need to be more villainous. It's just not needed, you know. So anyway, this is where we see that her mom's been taken away, and she fights back against these Cardassians, and then they hit her with the thing, and they kind of dump her on the promenade in the orb processing, which we find. So in this orb of time vision, she goes through another like many weeks of living here in the orb processing. She goes through all this other time. There's a big time jump here. We can see the soup scene. It's always about the soup. And that's how you feed the masses in an occupation. And this resistance leader on the station who wants to talk to her.
I didn't need any of this.
No, this is just a setup where she gets the bomb basically later on, which again we don't need. You know,
we already had an episode like this. We don't need it. It takes away from the rest of the whatever story there is.
Yeah, we get the setup here where Kira goes to the Dukat's quarters, going through the security field. That I guess is just a setup that the bomb needs to get through that security field later on. Like that's the least of our worries, writers, in terms of the logic of this episode. But they felt like they needed to get that here. She reunites with her mother, who she's relieved is okay, and doing better. But then we see that these are Cisco's quarters, just redressed, and if we see Ducat's here with the flowers, and they're living like a married couple now, and going on. There's even it's like your mom's new boyfriend is not who you expect, even like some kissing going on here, and it's just Kira is just so grossed out, repugnant here, and she's like, "You're playing parlor games with Ducat while people are dying on our planet. The occupation, the outrage, and she's like, "What do you want me to do? I can't fight back. So I'm gonna make the best of it." And she's like, "What about your husband? What about your family?" And she's like, "I'm getting extra food for that," which apparently seems to be true. It seems like her family did get extra provisions.
But is it?
I don't know.
Is it actually true, or is that a doctor?
Well, the only thing that corroborates it is when they get that call from the dad, Kira's dad, later on.
Right, but is that an actual call from him? Is it manipulated?
It could be. It easily could be. We don't know. Yeah. But it's, I don't know. Like they could have put some doubt onto that, but they don't. They don't directly, at least.
No, they don't. No.
They kind of present it like it's accurate, so she'll not go through with it. But anyway, Kira, as this person she's impersonating, this name she has. I love how nobody's ever seen this woman before. No one has her thing. Let's take her DNA. Weird. She has the same DNA as this kid. I don't know. There's just we know the Kardashians are amazing with their records, so it doesn't matter. The logic doesn't matter. Forget logic. All we need to worry about is we're gonna get a bomb earring going on here. The resistance guy gives Kira the bomb. He's like, "What about that Bajor mistress friend of yours?" And she's like, "She's a collaborator. She deserves what she gets." I'm going through. I'm like, "Is this the will of the prophets? Are you still on a religious quest here?"
I was irritated that she didn't struggle with the idea of murdering her mother.
Yeah.
Or changing
the timeline
at all.
She's trying to kill Ducat here too.
Yeah.
So if Ducat had died here in 2346, it's a very different galaxy. Maybe she would prevent the Dominion War. There's a lot more at stake here.
Yeah.
Maybe. So Kira, she's like, "Oh, I want to come say I'm sorry," and we see she got the earring. We get the close up. She's got a bomb in that earring, people. She's coming through. She gets through the security field. No,
and if you don't want to be suspicious, always pause before you walk through a security
field. And do a big gulp. Uh-oh, is this gonna work? We come in here, Mark Alive Ducat is feeding Kira Maru ice cream or something, and they're licking it off their fingers. They're just like, "Get out of here, you idiots!" And just and then Kira shows up and she apologizes, and "I'm really sorry. I want to be your friend again." And Ducat's like, "Whatever. If you can have your pal. It's get her some quarters, bosso. Let's get on it." "Oh yeah, right away, sir." And so this is where Ducat gives the transmission, the recording from Kira's father, which could be doctored. I agree. It is set up.
They don't allude to it at all in the episode. That's just me.
Other than Ducat has a big grip on it. I think that is the biggest thing to indicate it could be a fake. It's a fake. A couple more weeks to get that soundbite. And we see Kira turn on the bomb, and then she leaves it in the potted plant here behind, and she's like, "Yeah, let's talk." And then we see her put the recording in, and it's her dad. And it's going well, and the kids have food, and we're not starving anymore, and we miss you. But we see her mom cries and is sad. She's not a completely bad person. She does have some remorse. She misses her dad, and then she's like, "Oh," Kira's like, "I can't do it. I can't blow these people up." She goes out of her way to say, "Hey, Ducat, let's go." That wasn't necessary.
What is that? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. She not only has she had a second thoughts about blowing up her mother, but because she's already resolved to change the timeline here.
Or maybe it's because if Ducat dies, then no more food for her and her family.
Maybe, but Yeah, like she says, "Come on, Ducat." She like she goes out of her way to save him here. There's a bomb, and they do the big bomb scare here. They come over. Was Kira going to blow herself up originally? Was that her plan? Was she not going to get out in time? I don't know. I wasn't quite clear.
I have no idea
how she thought she was gonna, like, get away here. It doesn't really matter because she doesn't, like, unlike in Trials and Tribulations where they had to use the orb of time to return to the present. Kira just disappears after this explosion, and I guess the prophets are like, "That's it, you're done." So,
as soon as you start blowing shit up, we're done here.
Yeah, it's over. You're getting a little out of hand, and you come back, and it's this conversation with Cisco to end the episode about how she couldn't believe it. She found out her mother died like 7 years later. And Cisco, he's just like, I don't know, it seems kind of dark, but I don't know how to judge it, you know.
Even I don't remember exactly what he said, but I even found this conversation at the end kind of vacuous. Like it just.
Yeah, you're right. It's completely like devoid of any kind of meaning. I think it's just supposed to leave Kira tortured and unresolved, but it's not really necessary. It's just like this. She feels like the shame of her mother's dishonor or disgrace here. But it's also kind of making her reevaluate herself. I don't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't work out with Stephen Bear and Heinz Bleimler, the writers of this episode. It's a botched episode, and it's got a couple silver linings, tops overall. Anyway, let the shots, let the looks, and that's that. So in our screenshots, I thought Jaemeel would be with us by now, but I guess he's not going to be. So how about some details discovered with Dave about this episode? Sure. So this episode began life, as we said originally. This plan was to do a show based on a Nazi doctor, Joseph Mengele, who was notorious for performing bizarre and barbaric experiments on concentration camp inmates during World War II, which is basically kind of what they alluded to in that Voyager episode that came. Nothing Human, that came later. And yeah, they were going to do in the episode, ghosts of the Bajoran children were trying to begin appearing on the station, and the crew would come to believe that they are the ghosts of the children killed by the Cardassian scientists during the occupation who did research on them. However, it turns out that they aren't ghosts at all. The doctor was in fact sending the children into the future to gather information for the Obsidian Order. However, the writers couldn't make the story work, and it was abandoned at the last minute. I don't know. That's almost better.
Didn't make this one work either.
This isn't better. This is. I think that doesn't sound good, but it's like, with Bajoran orphan ghost children appearing for the past. But yeah,
trying to find blankets.
I'd rather watch that than this again. The part of the story dealing with the ghosts of the dead, those killed by the Cardassians during the occupation on Terok Nor, were previously covered in the 1996 Star Trek DS9 Harbinger, written by Ken Eklund and Sarah Stalker and Hilary J. Bader. Blah, blah, blah. The spirits of those murdered on Terok Nor were rising, but they abandoned that as well. So they did this Kira episode. We kind of covered that at length here. Reception. This show is a favorite among the writers. Is not a favorite. Wait. This show is a favorite among the writers and producers, not least because the subtle ambiguity of the denouement, the episode's refusal to push the viewer towards a particular moral position as Kira Maru. The viewer is left to form their own views of her actions. According to David Weddle, it was a muddy issue. Did Kira's mother do the right thing or not? Or was it just a choice of survival for a Bajoran? In the original version of the screenplay, there was no moral ambiguity at the end of the episode, with Kira clearly forgiving her mother and the viewers being discouraged to do likewise. But none of visitors argued that this wasn't true to the character of Kira, and there was no way she would be so clear about how she felt. I don't know. I think that they should have kept the idea of forgiving her at the end. But I do agree with Kira that maybe that's not how Kira would come around to that point of view. I feel like that's at least the one Cisco should have reached, but he was like, I'm not gonna tell you how to feel about your mom. It's all good. Yeah. And then talked about the whole Gold Ducat thing. The title of this episode is a quotation from the 1820 Percy Shelley lyrical drama Prometheus Unbound. The full quotation reads, to suffer woes which hope thinks infinite, to forgive wrongs darker than death or night, to defy power which seems omnipotent, to love and bear, to hope till hope creates from its own wreck the thing it contemplates, neither to change nor falter nor repent. This, like thy glory, Titan, is to be good, great, joyous, beautiful, and free. This is done alone, joy, empire, and victory. How's that?
I don't know. I got bored after 3 words.
Well, check out that from the epilogue in the play spoken by Demogorgon. All right. It is revealed that this episode, that Terok Nor was built in 2346. This contradicts Odo's statement in Babel that it was built in 2351. The difference of 5 years could be that Odo is just being wrong, or instead that 2346 is the beginning of the building and 2351 is the ending. That's fine. Odo, it's more likely Odo's wrong. I think there's way more credibility to that. When Dukat tells Kira that Sisko allowed him to see behind the lies and face the truth about himself, he is referring to the episode Waltz, where Dukat comes to realize that he truly hates the Bajoran people, and he feels he should have exterminated them all during the occupation. And during Dukat's transmission to Kira, Federation Elcar-style interfaces are just seen barely visible on the wall behind him, indicating that he is still using the shuttlecraft he stole in Waltz.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that.
Because we don't really know what he's up to during this period at all.
No.
Other than he just was bored one day. Like, I'll call up Kira just to mess with her.
He's like, oh, I forgot. I used to date her mother.
This is the first episode, of course, to mention O'Brien and Bashir's battle the Alamo Hollow Sweet Recreation, but it will get referenced many more times after this.
Many more times.
Yeah. Jake Sisko does not appear in this episode.
So it's like almost every other episode.
Yeah. The doll held by young Kira Nerys appears to be Loopy, a doll belonging to Molly O'Brien.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Let's. I was about to say guys, but it's just you and me. Speak of the devil.
Here for the ratings.
Here for ratings.
So, just before I start, let me indicate, because I was posting throughout.
Sorry, I was
completely blinders to this. Okay.
There's comments here.
She was manipulated as opposed to won over.
Yeah, she was manipulated, but yeah.
And also, Kira doesn't stick to herself. Why is she not able to forgive her collaborator mom, but can forgive Odo? Is what I don't understand.
Well, I think that's correct. I don't know. I think that the original idea of her forgiving her mom at the end is probably the better ending. I think Nana should have stayed out of that, and not say, this is. I hate when even William Shatner didn't want to do the line in Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country where he's like, let them die, and Shatner's like, well, Kirk wouldn't say that. Fuck off, Shatner. Like, the writers can decide what Kirk's gonna say, not you. You didn't write this movie. And it worked well in that movie,
But I can't understand why she would be, I can't forgive her. She's obviously manipulated. Her husband was aware of the situation, right? And from her perspective, she's doing it for the kids, right? What was Odo's excuse, right? Odo had no excuse, but supposedly it's fine with him. Mm-hmm. And she had like a front row for like the how many period of time that he was totally had blinders to everything else that was going around, right? But her mom, I don't know if I can forgive her. Come on. No, I mean, she spent a couple of days with her? A couple of days?
Yeah, pretty much.
No,
maybe less.
No, this is character assassination. I'm sorry. This episode sucks. It's terrible.
All right. Well, on that note, let's rate this episode. Wrongs darker than death or night. Jeff's not here. I'll go first. Well, Davan did give it
He
I
couldn't
don't
give
know.
it a 0, right? The system
Well,
wouldn't allow.
he did. He said at 9:42.
Yeah, he's
Is he back to 0? Is that what he's saying? Like, I don't know if this was after he was here or not, but anyway, I'm going to go with, this is like 2. Like, I think 2? That feels right. Yeah.
No, when Davan was complaining about this episode, I'm like, it can't be that bad. It might be like some, terrible choices in terms of the character. No, this is just as bad as Davan said. I'm also giving it a 0. Screw this episode. This should never have made air at all.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this episode a 2 for the number of scenes that I enjoyed.
And Davan, well, I if you are Davan, just holla if you have gone back down to a 0. But guys, this is a 1.3 rating, which is tied with Resurrection, the Mirror Boreal episode. So at the moment, but
that one was much better. I'm sorry. I didn't feel like one of the main characters.
You gave that a 1.5. So
yeah,
you did like.
I didn't feel like there was like they damaged Kira's like character like they did in this episode.
Yeah, it damaged it, and it just doesn't work. I don't like it. Okay,
one less episode. Like,
okay, season 6 has. I don't think it doesn't have a chance now of catching season 5 in terms of like its ratings, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I know we have some
tens. Couple of tens.
I think with our ratings too, though, this season is suffering the same way that Enterprise is right now on Monday. Is that everybody who's seen it, we're all waiting for our favorite stuff.
Right.
So these shitty episodes, we're like, fuck these episodes. They're like a 0 or a 0.5. Like,
yeah.
I think that's what's going on Enterprise. I see much more up on it than the rest of you, but it's because you're all waiting for your favorite part.
Let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the real the good episodes, and we don't. I guess you want to skip like the filler episodes.
Kevin, do you think then it is poor construction of the season and how they've broken down? Like, because you have the season, it's not like you plotted exactly where the things are gonna go. If they rearrange the episode so that there's a little bit less of a rocky terrain, right?
Yeah.
The reaction wouldn't be met so poorly.
For some, I'm not talking specifically this episode. It is objectively bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's actually in our perception. Like, I've always thought that the Dominion War was a much bigger part of this series than it actually is now, going through it again week by week. So every time it's not,
it doesn't feel like the war is even happening right now. Really,
right? Every time it doesn't have anything to do with that, or it's just sort of on the periphery. I'm annoyed.
Yeah, even the O'Brien episode with the Orion Syndicate at least felt like it had one foot involved in it. This is just a complete malpractice. Plus, she's trying to change the timeline. Like, does Cisco file a report about this? Like,
no. She was there on his capacity as emissary, not as captain.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I don't need a Starfleet captain. Like, I need you to be the emissary.
And the begging. Emissary. It's like, let's drop the pretense. Like,
he can't say no to Kira.
He needs like, this was a terrible decision.
Terrible. Oh yeah. I think at the end he kind of knows that. He's like, what did I let her do?
She, like, for her sake, she better not mention it to anyone. That stays in, like, if she tells O'Brien should just slap her. Like, what is wrong with you?
Well,
look what you did.
Yeah, like if anybody else got like a call in the middle of the night from Ducat and didn't report it, like Cisco would eat them for lunch. Like, it would be, but with Kira, he's like, whatever. It's personal. I get it's hard. Do you want to come over, like, watch a baseball game, get a hot dog? It's all good. That's Cisco. you know, with her
Yeah,
specifically.
I definitely would have liked for them to make her have a less active role in the past as well.
This is so
Like-
dumb.
Yeah, it's just
She-
dumb on every level.
She's actively trying to change the past and like interact with. Make sure that before you go, don't mess with the temporal prime directive or anything like that. Don't try to
First thing
change
she
anything.
does.
First thing. Oh my god.
So, guys, I think we can close the book on this episode. I dislike that the writers even pat themselves on the back for this episode at all. I don't think it's clever at all.
I also blame the network. How could you air this at all?
Well, it's no network. It's first run
It's
syndication. So it's
even matter. You would have
Paramount.
watched the episode.
Paramount
just-
made this. So yeah,
The studio should have looked at it and go, "We cannot air this episode. This is unairable." And
that wasn't going to happen in 1998.
No, they looked at it and went, "Well, people will watch this and come back."
Yeah,
I've seen enough episodes that got like negative reactions in terms of studios watching it, and they're like, "We can't air this episode." They could have done this for this.
Do you guys remember watching it at the time, like you know, like
Yes.
25 years ago? And did you feel as bad about it then at the time?
I think I might have skipped this episode, honestly.
I didn't
don't-
enjoy it.
I don't remember watching it the first time back then in first run.
I do, and I remember
do.
being just disappointed with it and go, "What? Ugh, like this isn't fun," you know. And like, not to mention, it's just like a sloppy time travel story, and
Terrible.
yeah,
Terrible.
it's just whatever. Anyway, let's look ahead, guys. Next episode, it's called Inquisition, and in this episode, Julian Bashir is accused of being a spy for the Dominion. The accusations turn out to be a tool to recruit him into Section 31.
So
Uh,
now, how can they prove this? Do they have?
No, well, they basically gaslight him for like the whole episode.
Sorry,
Like,
that's
so they-
that's the cue to put a specific drop.
Oh, of what?
What are they using to try to prove their case?
Oh,
Do they have
evidence.
There you go.
Sometimes I need it to be spelled out for me a little bit more. Exactly. Yeah, I always have that on the go.
Yeah.
Evidence. He wants evidence. Okay. Anyway, so Inquisition's coming up next. I'm looking forward to that. Then it's in the Pale Moonlight in 2 weeks. So you know, we will be doing no 1.3 averages for those, I don't imagine. So I think we're gonna be having a lot of fun. Especially in 2 weeks, and then after that, what we got? Like even some other. We got His Way, which is like the first Vic Fontaine episode. If you're a fan of that stuff, maybe you're not. I think they did it too much in season 7, but in its first appearance, or first couple of times, it was quite charming.
Yeah, if they did it less, it would be they lean heavy in.
Season 7, they lean like they're like, well, what if we just set the entire show here? You know. Like it was kind of like those seasons of Voyager where remember that one season where they had the holodeck program, it was like the pool hall, or they had the one season it was like the Talaxian vacation resort or whatever, and they're like, what, this would just be somewhere we can have scenes where people can like hang out.
We're just gonna leave the set up and just
We'll just leave this set up, and they're basically this one boring holodeck program is always running, and people can just kind of come in and out and socialize instead of going to like the mess hall or something else. This will allow us to have another set. Yeah, it's just kind of like that. Anyway, so lots of great episodes coming up on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Whether they're good or bad, we're gonna call them like we see them. You know, just like Odo in on the baseball field. You know, being the umpire.
Yeah,
And,
collaborator Odo, we should be referring to
collaborator Odo. Yeah, he's a bit complicit for sure. Maybe more than a bit, but Kira can forgive him. So, and you know, he's the best damn law enforcement man in the quadrant, maybe the entire galaxy.
Yeah, just make sure you're not standing beside him and walking with him on promenade.
Yeah, he's like, nothing to worry about here, Major. We're just gonna get more security guards. You know. Oh, yeah, she was.
You want me to do it personally? Like I'm having a fun time sitting on my butt delegating.
But he totally was like, why don't you go do something? You can't talk about it. Why don't you go do something about it?
Well, he take his own advice. He's like, I'm just going to talk about it and tell my other subordinates to take care of this uptick in crime during a war.
He just talks about the crime. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah. He's like, I'm on to you, Quark. I'll get you one of these days. All right. So, okay, join us for the next D9. Of course, check out all our great stuff here on Live Long and Podcast, a Star Trek channel where we talk about Star Trek all the time. We got our Enterprise podcast ongoing. We're going to be back next Thursday. Star Trek Picard season 3 is starting up. And we got Jodie Simpson in. We got Adam Woodward in for that. Davan and Kevin's coming along, and I'll be along. I'll be able to make the first night because of the Ant-Man and the Wasp, which we're going to be covering over on Super Mater Brothers podcasting, Jaemeel and Davan and I, as that's coming up in the near future. But of course, here on Live Long and Podcast, all kinds of Star Trek review shows, including our science division where we do debates and trivia. And we got our Locutors of Trek division where we do longer tail questions like the failures of Star Trek or, economics of Star Trek. We have our operations division, which does video games and Star Trek radio theater and different creative outlets in that way. And we're part of a whole federation of podcasts, if you didn't know. Like we've mentioned, there's great shows like the Super Mater Brothers podcasting coming back very soon for Survivor season.
And Big Brother Canada.
And Big Brother Canada. March is going to be busy. Of course, I am going away for a week in March, so get ready for that. So I won't be able to do Big Brother podcasts that week. But hopefully Jeff Mater will come in to save the day. You're Jeff Mater, the host of this show. Yes. We are brothers!
Did you accidentally press that?
Nope.
Okay.
And then there's the KBBBL podcast on Fridays with Jet David and Francis Baker talking about The Simpsons. X-Rated on Tuesdays with Andre and Davan, where they would talk about X-Men the animated series. They were on tonight. Andre also has the Graphics Histories podcast, where they talk about movies and comic books and do some really interesting interviews over there. And the Hellbound podcast, a horror podcast with Alex Blackburn and Michael Chan, audio podcast comes out on Wednesdays. Not to mention Trivial Debates, which we just did recently. Jaemeel was hosting. I was competing along with Jeff Mater and Foster. We're still trying to put this episode together for this month, although it seems like Jody and Jaemeel need to go head to head because they've been trying to trash talk each other in their promos. So
I asked a simple question, and then Murphy was trying to stir the pot.
Well, it seems like a Murphy thing to do. Yeah. So, and Hold Up, guys. We forgot to mention Hold Up is going to be on tomorrow night. Jodie Simpson, along with Davan Skelhorn and Chris Murphy, talking about spy movies, including Ronin,
Atomic Blonde, and
Atomic
North by
Blonde.
Northwest.
North by Northwest, a movie I'm not familiar with. Of those.
Oh, you should watch it.
Yeah,
you should watch it.
Well, we all should. We should all watch 3 of these movies and watch Jodie and Davan and Murphy tomorrow night talking about those 3 movies, the spy movies. The next edition of Hold Up. Yeah, and good times here on the Federation of Podcasts. All right, well, we're gonna get out of here. Thanks for being with us, and let's never talk about this episode again. Move on to all the clear horizons upon us. We'll see you next time. Live long and podcast.
I only hope you won't condemn us all for the boorish behavior of one man.
One episode.